Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Tuesday, October 28th, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The high in Riverside today is 88.2 degrees, with a low dipping to 59.7 degrees, so expect a warm afternoon with mild evenings ahead. Coming up, we'll examine the Trump administration's move to suspend SNAP benefits during the government shutdown and its potential impacts on families. We'll also break down the Federal Reserve's decision to lower interest rates as the job market shows signs of cooling. Plus, other key stories on global trade tensions, local election updates, and breakthroughs in renewable energy. All this and more coming up on Alex's News. Stay tuned. Good morning, folks. Today, we're diving into a developing crisis that's hitting families where it hurts, right in the dinner table. The Trump administration has announced a halt to federal SNAP food benefits starting November 1st, just 4 days from now, amid the ongoing government shutdown. This affects 42 million low-income Americans who depend on these food stamps for groceries. Joining me to break it all down is our Washington correspondent, Ethan. Ethan, what can you tell us about this shocking USDA decision?
Grace, it's a real gut punch for millions. According to breaking reports from CNN and the New York Times on their YouTube coverage yesterday, October 27th, the USDA's website notice says, quote, and, end quote, the well has run dry. At this time, there will be no benefits issued November 1st. We are approaching an inflection point for Senate Democrats, end quote. That's their way of pointing fingers at Democrats in the Senate, claiming they voted 12 times against funding the food stamp program, which is what SNAP stands for, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It's the lifeline for about 1 in 8 Americans facing rising food costs.
That's alarming, especially with the shutdown dragging on. For viewers unfamiliar, remind us how we got here and why it's the second longest in history.
Absolutely, Grace. The partial shutdown kicked off October 1st, now in its 28th day, making it the second longest funding lapse ever, and the third one during President Trump's second term, which started January 20th, 2025, with Vice President J.D. Vance. As the Associated Press detailed yesterday, syndicated by Wayne E15, a CBS affiliate in Fort Wayne, Indiana, it's rooted in partisan fights over fiscal year 2026 spending, foreign aid cuts, and the looming end of Enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies by December 31st. Democrats, led by Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, want those subsidies extended. They've helped boost ACA enrollment to over 24 million this year. Without them, premiums could double next year, kicking millions off coverage. Republicans say reopen the government first, no strings attached.
And Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins is doubling down on the blame game. How does that play into the SNAP halt?
She's echoing the White House line, Grace, calling it Democratic obstructionism that's starving the program of funds. CBS News reported this morning, October 28th, that Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat from Connecticut, fired back on CNN's State of the Union yesterday, saying, quote, and, end quote, if they sat down to negotiate, we could open up the government on Tuesday or Wednesday, and there wouldn't be any crisis in the food stamp program, end quote. Schumer's accused Trump of manufacturing a SNAP crisis for political gain, per Forbes and the Washington Post. It's like a shutdown starving for a solution, with November's $8 billion allocation hanging in the balance.
What about those contingency funds? Is there no backup plan?
That's the heart of the legal tussle, Grace. The USDA is refusing to touch $5 to $6 billion in reserves, as outlined in an October 24th memo to states, detailed by the Epoch Times and American Progress. They cite 7 U.S.C. Section 2027, saying those funds are only for true emergencies like natural disasters, not a quote and end quote man-made end quote budgetary mess from the shutdown. Invoking the Anti-Deficiency Act, 31 U.S.C. Section 1341A, they argue it bars spending without Congress approving, unlike Social Security, which keeps rolling. Critics from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities and Food Research and Action Center, quoted by WLRN and CBS News, call this a narrow misread, pointing to a now-deleted September 30th USDA plan that promised continuity using multi-year funds. Back in the 2018-2019 shutdown, the longest at 35 days, They issued early benefits, but the Government Accountability Office later ruled it violated the act, per their September 5, 2019 decision B331094. No fresh rulings yet for this crisis, leaving debate wide open.
The human impact sounds devastating. How are states stepping up?
It's patchwork relief, Grace, with food banks not enough to fill the void, as the Texas Tribune and Time magazine warn. Democratic states like New York, with Governor Kathy Hochul pledging $30 million in emergency aid per Newsday, and California allocating $80 million to food banks plus National Guard help via their Department of Social Services, are covering some benefits temporarily, though no federal reimbursement later, per USDA memos. Illinois, Massachusetts, and Pennsylvania are blaming Republicans on their SNAP sites. Republican-led ones like Arkansas and Oklahoma are pushing pantries and charities, says the Dallas Morning News and Oklahoma.gov. Washington's DSHS says cash benefits continue, but food aid stops cold. Existing EBT card balances work until gone, but after October 31st, it's uncertain, per usafacts.org.
Reactions are pouring in. Any legal moves?
Fierce backlash, Grace. The Center for American Progress calls it a stunning disregard for well-being, while FRAC and Legal Aid DC say it's unlawful. Senate Democrats sent a letter urging reserves be used, seeing SNAP as an appropriated entitlement like Social Security. No court injunctions yet to block it, per J.D. Supra and Common Dreams, but a 2020 ruling against Trump-era SNAP cuts gives hope. Congress is stalled, per CBS News and The Washington Post, with global ripples on aid noted by ClickOrlando.com and Economic Times. Families in places like Fort Wayne are terrified, as WANE15 highlights. This fragility of entitlements in divided times is food for thought.
Sobering stuff, Ethan. Thanks for unpacking this complex mess for us. We'll have more on this and our second story coming up. Good morning, everyone. As we wrap up our top stories this morning, let's turn to the economy, where eyes are on the Federal Reserve tomorrow for what could be another interest rate cut. Joining me now from the studio to break it all down is our economics reporter, Chloe. Chloe, walk us through what's expected at this Federal Open Market Committee meeting.
Thanks, Grace. That's right. The Fed's big decision is set for tomorrow, October 29th. And according to reports from ABC News and CBS News yesterday, October 27th, they're widely expected to lower the benchmark federal funds rate by a quarter point or 25 basis points. That would drop the current range from 4.25% to 4.50%, effectively targeting around 3.9% to 4.0% after previous tweaks. The CME Group's FedWatch tool puts the odds at over 97%, as CBS News notes, aiming to ease borrowing costs with a softening job market, even as inflation holds steady but elevated.
A second cut this year, Chloe. What makes the labor market look so wobbly right now? Explain that for folks tuning in who might not follow the numbers daily.
Absolutely, Grace. The job market is showing signs of a slowdown, what some call a low-hire, low-fire balance. According to ABC News reporting by Associated Press economics writer Christopher Rugaber, hiring has nearly stalled, with average monthly job gains at just 29,000 from June through August 2025. That's a big drop from the 168,000 average in 2024. As confirmed by Deloitte's third quarter 2025 United States economic forecast and CBS Money Watch's September 5th coverage. The unemployment rate ticked up to 4.3% in August from 4.2% in July, the highest since October 2021, per Bureau of Labor Statistics data referenced in Fox Business, Global News, and The Independent. Layoffs are still low, but Fed Chair Jerome Powell described it as a curious kind of balance, with rising downside risks to jobs now rivaling inflation worries.
And inflation, is it giving the Fed the green light for this cut? Or are there sticky spots?
Inflation has cooled nicely without speeding up again, creating this window. The Consumer Price Index rose at a 3% pace last month, cooler than expected, as Investopedia and Forbes highlight in their economic summaries. It's a far cry from the 4-decade highs 3 years back. Overall growth is solid, thanks to huge tech investments in AI, per ABC News and Deloitte, but that reliance on tech underscores some vulnerabilities. The Fed's first cut this year was 25 basis points in September, after 3 in late 2024, steering toward a neutral rate that's neither too stimulative nor restrictive.
All this amid the government shutdown, now in its fourth week. How's that messing with the Fed's plans, Chloe?
It's a real curveball, Grace. Or should I say a data drought? ABC News and CBS News call it a data blackout for policymakers. The shutdown started October 1st, delaying key reports like the Bureau of Labor Statistics' September jobs data, originally due October 3rd. The White House says October's Consumer Price Index might not even get compiled, as ABC noted yesterday, and JP Morgan plus Marketplace.org confirmed. They did release September's CPI as an exception for Social Security cost of living adjustments, recalling staff temporarily, but it's inconsistent. Past shutdowns like 2013 delayed things too, per Equitable Growth and Forbes. Now, about 750,000 federal workers are nearing a month without pay, which could curb consumer spending, driving 70% of the economy. Plus, earlier 2025 layoffs from the Trump administration's Department of Government Efficiency Initiative, over 280,000 federal workers and contractors across 27 agencies, as CBS News reported April 3rd and Forbes March 2nd, have already cut federal employment by 97,000 since January, with an August drop of 15,000. The American Prospects October 24th analysis ties these to higher unemployment and skewed data, while private sector AI and tech hiring, per McKinsey and Stanford HAI, grows but focuses on healthcare, not broad gains.
Fed officials sound cautious. Any hints on more cuts ahead, like in December?
Chair Powell has stressed the labor market softened considerably per recent ABC News remarks, with employment risks needing rate relief. The committee's split of 19 officials, 9 back 2 or fewer cuts this year, matching September's forecast, according to ABC and UBS economist Jonathan Pingle. But markets eye more easing. Fed Governor Christopher Waller, a potential Trump pick to replace Powell in 2026, endorsed tomorrow's cut but wants data-driven moves after, saying, quote, "Something's gotta give," end quote, amid soft hiring and healthy growth elsewhere, as ABC News covers. D. Shaw's Chris Dawsey compared it to driving in a snowstorm with zero visibility, predicting they'll stick to pre-shutdown plans for December due to data shortages. Santander's Stephen Stanley sees worrisome points but wonders if it's a trend or air pocket. Pingle says if Powell reiterates job risks in his post-meeting news conference, it boosts December odds over 90% via CME FedWatch. Fidelity and Central Trust forecast up to 75 basis points total by year-end, to 3.75% to 4.00%.
For everyday folks, Chloe, how does this cut hit their wallets, especially on big buys like homes or cars?
The big win is lower borrowing costs, particularly for mortgages and auto loans, as CBS News Money Watch by Matt Richardson detailed yesterday. The Fed doesn't set mortgage rates directly, those tie to 10-year Treasury yields, but this signals cheaper money overall. Since Powell's late August cut hints, the average 30-year fixed mortgage has fallen from 6.6% to about 6.2% per Freddie Mac data in ABC and CBS reports. Weekly averages show more easing 6.13% mid-September, up to 6.34% October 2nd, then down to 6.30% October 9th, 6.27% October 16th, and 6.19% October 23rd. Rates often dip before cuts as lenders anticipate, like in September 2024 with a 50 basis point surprise, or this September hitting a 3-year low pre-cut. Post-cut, they might tick up briefly, but the trend is down for 2025, maybe helped by December. For housing, it boosts affordability, per Bankrate, Schwab, and Florida Realtors, lowering monthly payments for buyers and refinancers stuck at higher rates. Home prices could climb if supply stays tight, with owner's rate locked in, sparking bidding wars in hotspots, as Investopedia and Kiplinger note. Builders get cheaper financing too, per JP Morgan, though shutdown spending drags add volatility. CBS suggests shopping rates now online, locking if possible, and knowing drops won't match the 25 basis points exactly.
Fascinating stuff, Chloe. It seems the Fed's trying to thaw this economic freeze without overheating things. Thanks so much for the deep dive.
My pleasure, Grace.
And that's our look at Story 2 of 2 this morning. Sources for this segment include ABC News, CBS News, Associated Press, CME Group, Deloitte, CBS Money Watch, Bureau of Labor Statistics, Fox Business, Global News, The Independent, Investopedia, Forbes, JP Morgan, Marketplace.org, Equitable Growth, The American Prospect, McKinsey, Stanford HAI, UBS, D.E. Shaw, Santander, Fidelity, Central Trust, Freddie Mac, Bankrate, Schwab, Florida Realtors, Kiplinger, Trading Economics, St. Louis Fed, Seeking. Here are some other headlines. A 6.1 magnitude jolt shook Turkey's Balıkesir province late Monday, with AFAD clocking the quake at 10:48 p.m. local time near Sendurgi, just 6 kilometers deep, too close for comfort. Several buildings collapsed, including 3 unoccupied structures and a 2-story shop previously battered by an August quake. Officials report at least 22 injured, most from panic-induced falls, and no immediate fatalities. Tremors rippled through Istanbul and Izmir, rattling nerves in a nation straddling major fault lines. With memories of the 2023 7.8 quake still raw, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says teams are on the ground, assessments are ongoing, and temporary shelters are open as aftershocks keep residents on edge. The message tonight: shake-proof plans need more than a trial run. In Nara, Japan, the gavel met a confession. Tetsuya Yamagami, accused of assassinating former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in July 2022, pleaded guilty, telling the court it is all true, according to NHK. Prosecutors say he used a homemade firearm, driven by anger over the Unification Church, which he claims drained his family through his mother's donations. His lawyers will pursue leniency and may challenge charges tied to the weapon's legality. The courtroom is packed, the country's attention even more so. This rare act of political violence exposed deep ties between the ruling party and the church, spurring new rules on religious donations. The trial is slated to wrap by mid-December, with a verdict expected in January. Justice on a tight schedule, with consequences that could echo far beyond the dock. Clouds cleared after a digital downpour. Amazon Web Services says its massive outage is resolved. The hours-long disruption on Monday, October 20th, 2025, knocked popular platforms like Snapchat, Roblox, and Fortnite, plus financial services, off their game. A DNS error in the U.S. East 1 region jammed DynamoDB and triggered a cascade of failures. Engineers patched the problem, and the status lights turned green. But the bigger red flag remains. When one data center domino wobbles, huge chunks of the internet can topple. The takeaway for tech: diversify or risk a synchronized sink. On the Israel-Lebanon frontier, a drone drama spiraled. UNIFIL says a patrol near Kfar Kila used necessary defensive countermeasures when an Israeli drone buzzed aggressively. After it was downed, UNIFIL reports another drone dropped a grenade and a tank fired a shot, no injuries. The IDF counters the drone was on routine intel duty, posed no threat, and was intentionally brought down. It acknowledges dropping a grenade to protect tech, but denies firing at the patrol. With French peacekeepers involved and Paris condemning what UN officials call very, very dangerous, this rare face-off strains a fragile November 2024 ceasefire. As operations against Hezbollah intensify, miscalculation now has a louder hum. And in a philanthropic pivot, private donors have rallied more than $125 million over 8 months to keep critical international programs alive after a U.S. foreign aid freeze. Project Resource Optimization, co-founded by former USAID official Sasha Gallant, raised over $110 million to support pared-down, high-impact efforts. It's a bold backfill, but no budget substitute. Federal foreign aid hit $64 billion in 2023. Organizers call the haul remarkable. Leaders warn generosity can't replace government scale. Triage by wallet is no long-term cure. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 4.0, Gemini Pro 2.5, Gemini Flash 2.5, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.